All right. First of all, I'd like to go back in history. Let's go to 1978. Many of you will remember Lee Iacocca. He was the vice president of Ford Motor Company, one of many. And he left Ford to take over Chrysler, which was in a massive financial crisis. But before he did, at Ford, he learned a lesson. Watching a previous new president come in and be defeated by the bureaucracy within 2 years, could do very little, and ended up resigning after 2 years, kind of pushed out. So when Lee went over to Chrysler, they made him, well, before he went there, they made him an offer. The board made him an offer, and in principle he said, sure, I'll go. But I have a request. What's his request? I got to be able to fire anybody and in any number that I want. Well, it took the board about 2 weeks to swallow that one. Eventually they swallowed. He came on and fired 33 of 35 vice presidents. He kept among them, he kept the vice president in charge of production. Now, there's a lesson in this, and the lesson is, especially if you've been hired to take over and reform an institution, you got to get the reins of power. And you're not going to do it as an individual. The bureaucracy, albeit a private one, will stymie you with obstructionism, wrap you up, strangle you, you're mobbed. And out you go. Expect it. If you don't have your own team, that's essential for anybody who thinks that they're going to reform an institution. And even for others. Now, my article is about capture, and an element of it, a significant element, is about mobbing. In this lecture, I'm going to focus on mostly the mobbing aspect. Mobbing, the power of mobbing is immense. The stress created on the targets is horrendous. Directors and executives can fall fast, trembling, weeping, going to psychs. The impact is just drastic. Many of you have seen it. If they don't do that, they become enfeebled, less decisive, less effective, looking over their shoulders at what they can do and what they can't without stirring up too much rebellion. And institutionally and individually, the costs are immense as the new leadership, a cabal, takes over, if that's what happens. So that's a different optic on mobbing. Up to now, we've been discussing mobbing mostly from the point of view of individual and mostly from the point of view of the targets and the motives. We've been considering the motives a little bit, and we're considering the targets and the impact on the targets quite extensively. But mobbing doesn't only involve individual attacks. There's a subclass of mobbing that involves institutional takeover. And what I studied was a little representative case of this, which was in credit unions. I wanted to look at that sector. It's a sector I know something about. Mobbing can be a tactic within a strategy for takeover. A very significant tactic, especially in the initial phases of takeover. You'll see why in the initial phases. So in the context of Canadian credit unions, I want to discuss the context, the indicators, the nature, and the partial remedies for this. The context under which, by using mobbing and other tactics, a cabal can seize control by intimidating and running off principal directors and executives. Got that? Running off principled directors, principled people with principles, principled directors and executives. They want people who will be subservient or install themselves in those capacities if not. The main indicators that efforts are beginning or have already captured an institution, what are they? Those indicators, to look at them, I looked at the micro points of power inside of an institution. Micro points of power in credit unions that can be initially targeted during a takeover campaign. Though Lehman has listed 45 indicators of mobbing, was mostly in the context of individual targets. This now looks at institutions. Well, of course, they have individual targets in the process, but we're looking at institutional takeover. So the indicators are additional indicators, largely. Now, also, perhaps unlike many of the findings of mobbing in the case of academia, where it's kind of open, not yet, not yet. I told you I don't like PowerPoint. So the when you have a cabal, a rather unprincipled one, basically in it for themselves, especially in a financial institution, this has to be pretty much secretive, conspiratorial, unlike what often happens in academia and maybe some other professions. So that is another characteristic which is almost sine qua non. They can't do it otherwise. Why? Because there can easily be civil and criminal penalties if the financial authorities find out what you're doing. So it's necessarily, they have to be very, very cautious that they might step over the line. Let's look at one case. PACE Savings and Loan Credit Union, which the authorities closed up in 2019. This capture had gone on for 28 years. The credit union cumulatively lost in the order of $58 million corruptly. Now, albeit the amount drastic, albeit the investigation fairly thorough, very interesting. The documents were sealed. There was never a trial. There were never charges pressed. And it was all sealed up. The authorities, the credit union, new installed leadership after the main leaders of the cabal had been the chairman of the board and the CEO. Initially, that chairman of the board was CEO for something like 25 years or so, and then he became president, and his son became the CEO, imagine. So, no trial, no prison time, and as for criminal charges, were the pros and cons considered? Of this, not a word appears in public. Commentary and court findings available anywhere. No bird peeped or squawked from the bench or any corner. Judging by the results, all sides preferred a polite, confidential, very secret civil accord, an NDA, to shut it up. That's another theme that some of you have already talked about, and it's very important in this. There's no transparency. You can't evaluate completely well. It looks like, for instance, that there was probably some mobbing in the very early phases and maybe occasionally to keep a few directors in line, but there's no proof.
Hi, Peter. 5 minutes.
Oh, God. All right. Now, so the insurance companies took the biggest hit, and all the other three were very happy at that. What's the context for capture? You got many of the credit unions are large and dispersed. You got 50% of the members long time ago used to come and vote. Now it's 1 or 2%. So if you grab, there's not very much resistance. Well, and now we're facing the technological changes, economic concentration in the field of finance, intensifying competition in that sector, and there's a huge pressure to merge or die. But when you merge, or when you think you want to merge, you're threatening people. And it happens to be that it's exactly then, when people feel threatened, you get rebellions. Half, for instance, quote, half of the managers who discussed the managerial work environment and the majority of managers who reported an experience of upward bullying, they called it that, referred to some form of change preceding the occurrence of inappropriate behavior. In other words, the threat stirred the resistance. These changes included sub-themes of organizational change, new manager, etc. I could well add merger. What are the types of capture? You can get a gradual style, like apparently in PACE, or you can get a really fast one. Really, really fast. 3 directors, fall, boom, 1 month, boom, another month, boom, another month, out, out, out. It can happen really fast. That's the power of mobbing. That's the threat of mobbing. And it causes tremendous inefficiencies and tremendous grief. Now, so it can be fast or slow. What are the tactics? The tactics and the indicators for capture. Now, this is where you need some PowerPoint. I'm not sure which button to push. I got it. I guessed. Okay. Does it say tactics? No, the context of capture. Okay, I did that one. Types of capture, did that. Tactics. All right. So when I get past, tell me to push a button. Wave your finger or something. Okay? All right. Capture. You want to know what the strategies, the tactics, the timing, and at least the secrecy. That it's required in this type of capture. When you gain control, you got to consolidate it to keep it. Use mobbing to push out the first step, push out the principal leaders, sometimes by instrumentalizing subservient, lower level mobbers. So sometimes the real instigator can be hidden in this process. In formal cases of bullying or mobbing, encourage the participants to settle and sign a confidentiality agreement. Now, what's that do? It doesn't protect, even if a person knows that, the manager, they know they got no backup from the institution. Secrecy and conspiracy, these are all indicators. They're measurable indicators. They're indicators that authority should be watching. Extravagant salaries, a series of resignations by senior administrators, a series of complaints of bullying or mobbing. In Kenya, Mozambique, there is no legislation. The word mobbing doesn't appear in the legislation anywhere, federal or provincial.
Hi, Peter, can you wrap it up? Because time's up.
All right, buddy. Now, I got 13 points, so, and they'll go fast.
Ooh.
A series of complaints of bullying, the signs of seizure. What are the micro points of power? Control the nominations committee. Begin to make sure that replacements for the board are selected by the board, not by the membership. Have a scheme so the directors who resign don't resign before the elections, they resign after the elections, so then the board can nominate them. Mostly select and recommend nominees who are not directors on other boards, because those are people who have reputations to defend and to defend their independence. Don't have an independent nominations board. Make sure the nomination board is fully controlled by the board itself. Don't select independent thinking people, and you'll be amazed, you'll find on the board directors who almost never say a word. Now, prohibit the members from debating, and there are some credit unions that have this in their bylaws. Prohibit candidates for directorships from debating with the members, putting it in brochures or anything, any debate about policies and strategy. Minimize the discussions to very, very few questions, one or two. Have the boards recommend nominees who the members should vote for as, so they get endorsed nominees. Make sure that if you've got 5 people coming up for election, it's only 5 candidates. So no competition. Make sure that the members, you're not trying to stir up a hornet's nest. So you don't do much to attract people to come to the membership. And you might have to whistle to try to get employees to make sure you got a quorum.
Okay, Peter, is that all 13?
Give me 1 minute, please, and I will be done.
We have to move on to the next presenter. Sorry about that. We treat that to everybody equally.
Half a minute?
Sorry about that.
Thank you.